Now, here's the interesting thing about all of the mainstream gaming industry right now, right? We have a battle happening right before our eyes, and there are some people that are actually trying to speak out against the nonsense that's been happening for many years. And not everybody is a psychopath in the gaming industry. I've said this many times, and I stand by it. Well, now we have an example of what happens when you are that person that speaks out against the narrative and you have the mainstream try to attack you because they want to maintain the old guard. We have an article here from That Park Place, and the headline reads, The Witcher narrative director Philip Weber targets Moon Studio CEO Thomas Mahler for calling out cancel culture and defending gamers fighting against woke ideology. Now, we did a video earlier today about Thomas Mahler. If you guys missed it, please go check it out, talking about the comments he made against a German gaming journalist and how that gaming journalist is very well known for talking through a leftist lens, and how he basically said, hey, maybe you should take a nuanced approach and stop showcasing things through one particular ideology and just talk about what you're actually supposed to talk about. Don't talk about politics and throw it in there when nobody asked you to. Well, apparently now he's getting attacked by The Witcher narrative director Philip Weber, which sucks because Cyberpunk was a great game as time went on. It's one of those games where it came out terrible, lots of problems, and eventually it became pretty good. The Witcher is one of my top favorite games of all time. I absolutely fucking love The Witcher, but unfortunately, it looks like CD Projekt Red is absolutely going woke. Their company, if you look at some of the stuff they've done and the video clips they've put out, they are absolutely drinking the Kool-Aid. They are drinking the woke Kool-Aid all fucking day long, and unfortunately, it's starting to translate over into their work. But let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, it's always these male soy boy feminists, man. I swear to God, it's always these people that want to come out and talk about, oh, you can't go against leftist ideology. What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be progressive. Yeah, it's always these kind of people. The Witcher narrative director Philip Weber targeted Moon Studio CEO Thomas Mahler for calling out cancel culture and defending gamers from woke ideology. Mahler took to X on May 13th to share a message he sent to a German journalist, Maurice Weber, who works at German outlet GameStar. Now, we already went over this. If you guys missed it again, go check out my last video. Let's talk about this. It says that he went on, moreover, it become the norm to point fingers at others, particularly at those who may think differently from us. Rather than allowing others to be different and listening to them regardless, we attack them outright. It's frankly eerily reminiscent of old Nazi tactics. Anyone who doesn't conform is ridiculed, and it's suggested that they be shamed, fired, and have their careers destroyed. Now, the funny thing is, it'll be that particular side of the aisle that's going to call us Nazis, right? But the funny thing is, they're the ones who literally act like them, right? If you were to put them into previous day Germany, you would realize that they would get along really well with the people who were claiming to be Nazis back then, right? Like, they're the ones, due to their own kind of ideology and how they go about things, they advocate for the same exact things that certain people in World War II did. It says, this has been the approach over the past few years, and I know plenty of people whose careers have been devastated by trivialities and misinformation, and they continue to suffer today. He asserted, you seem unaffected, and thus you refuse to consider a more open perspective. Your apparent lack of empathy in this matter is not only unhelpful, but also shows a considerable amount of ignorance. Perfect. I think there's nothing wrong with what he said, because as you guys already know, the gaming journalists in the mainstream, they all think the same, act the same, talk the same, do the same. They are literally the same people just pretending to be diverse, and they're not at all. Trust me. Then Mahler then wrote, allow me to also play critic for a moment. At GameStar, you do the same thing. Instead of cleaning your own house, you wield the we report and earn from our articles, but beware, those guys are the real villains narrative, just to ensure the spotlight never falls on you, aligning yourselves just so. That's precisely why we've cut you off. We find such morally dubious practices unacceptable and refuse to support them. I love it, man. We need to call out these gaming journalists more and more, because look what happens when they get called out, right? Alyssa Mercante losing her mind, right? Everybody else in the gaming industry losing their minds, right? You see what happens at IGN. You see what happens at Kotaku. All these gaming journalists, Levi Winslow, they lose their mind when you call them out and they want to pretend to be victim. Now, let's talk about this for a second. In response to this post, Philip Weber, the narrative director at CD Projekt Red, working on the new Witcher saga of games the company announced, responded, "I do remember when you were quite happy to publicly shit on us a while ago, so please make sure to apply those principles you ask of others for yourself as well." Mahler responded, "I always try to. Feel free to call me out whenever I'm not true to my words. And I was right in the end, wasn't I? It's commendable that you folks turn things around, and I love you folks for that. But that doesn't excuse that you sold a full-price game while trying to hide the fact that it was broken and untested, and your marketing department tried the best to cover it up. That is just shady practice and should be condemned whenever it happens. By the way, you work in the AAA industry. I think you're playing with fire by posting publicly like this," he warned. "You're a cog in the machine that doesn't really care about you, so be careful." Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I find it very interesting that he apparently had a problem with being called out for what Cyberpunk was. Like I said early in the video, Cyberpunk is that game that unfortunately now it's quite fucking good. But when it first came out, that game was so unbelievably bad for a lot of people. Thankfully, I was not one of them. My system was able to handle it with very little issues, but that doesn't mean that other people weren't affected. And this is the mindset that these urinalists have. As long as it doesn't affect me, well, apparently it doesn't matter. Like, that's not how that works. Just because I wasn't affected in Cyberpunk doesn't mean that other people weren't. And you need to speak out for those people that were. But apparently it's a big problem when you call that stuff out. Then it says Mahler had previously criticized CD Projekt Red and how it sold Cyberpunk 2077 back in February of 21 in a post on Reset Era. He wrote in the post the product was a fraction of what the developer hyped it up to be, and on top of that, it barely even ran on consoles that it was supposed to run surprisingly well on. Again, the lies were obvious. We already know CD Projekt Red took a big PR hit when it came to Cyberpunk 2077, and it took them many years to be able to turn that game around. You guys already know how terrible it ran on consoles, all the way to the point where Sony had to take it off the PlayStation Store. That's how bad it was running. Imagine a game being so broken that you can't actually sell it because the publisher doesn't want to get in trouble for selling your game. That's how bad Cyberpunk 2077 was. So yeah, Mahler has a point. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that when you're releasing games in this segment, because you can talk all this shit you want, but you were absolutely shady by trying to pretend like things were perfectly fine with Cyberpunk and then releasing it knowing damn well that the game was going to be broken for a long time, that it was going to take forever for it to actually be fixed. But I guess in today's modern day of, hey, we have the internet, let's fix it after, you guys thought it must have been okay. Then he later added, and yet gamers and journalists don't really seem to mind all that much. Yeah, the backlash is coming, but usually you see a ton of people then arguing that they like the game that came out of it anyway. So that is not the point. It doesn't matter if the snake oil actually tastes fine. Don't sell me on features that don't exist. Don't paint the picture that you'll never be able to deliver. Don't fucking lie to me. You're fucking over gamers. You're fucking over journalists that should know better, so shame on you. And you're fucking over other developers. Listen, that entire statement right here, absolutely agree. I think that this guy Mahler is winning me over. He's winning me over. But of course, I'm going to be very cautious because look what happened with Shift Up and Stellar Blade, right? We had the same thing happen with Shift Up. They were saying all the right things. They were pretending as if they were on our side or whatever the case may be. And then they ended up censoring the game last minute, bending the knee to Sony and basically lying to everybody, saying that it was going to be uncensored. Well, we found proof that it was. So I would say cautiously follow this. I would support this developer at this point 100%, but cautiously follow it and make sure you hold them true to their words. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.